For generations you've slept. No purpose. No call to wake you.
This is Warframe, and you might have heard of it before. Look, let me just cut to the chase. This game is kind of absurd, but in a good way. Only in Warframe could you spend your mornings dismantling whole armies. Maybe you'd like to roleplay as the humble lumberjack, peacefully chopping down giant sentient tree monsters using futuristic space snipers and mech suits. Or perhaps you'd like to solve generational poverty, one body at a time. This game is a little all over the place, and that's okay. So, dear viewer, join me on this journey to save the Origin system in...
You think you're safe behind this metal, but you're not.
Motivations are inconsequential.
You're my prize now, Deno. The world weighs more heavily on you now. Try not to lose yourself, Deno.
I offer ye these choices 3, Mag, Excalibur, and Vault. You should seriously look over what each of these frames do, because you won't be able to get a new one for quite some time, or you could just pick the one that looks the coolest.
I see the Lotus has tried to wake you. Pity she's too late. You're my prize now, Deno. No. We are taking this one with us.
What has he done to you? I can't lose another Tenno. I'm surging your Warframe's power systems. Quick,
Welcome officially to the game's tutorial. We begin by tearing everyone in this room asunder, with so many more to come. You make your way to a weapons cache, and by weapons cache, I mean yet another choice between a sword or a staff. Continuing on to another cache where we have the choice between a pistol or kunais. The Lotus has informed me that she's called an extraction ship. Hey look, there it is right now.
Tenno, I didn't know ready for raids.
After hitting the boss more than 5 times, he exits the ring and leaves you to continue on your journey. And guess what? You'll get your final weapon, this one being the choice between a powerful bow or a standard rifle. Eventually, we find ourselves at a dead end where we find yet another ship. We hack into the systems to awaken the ship AI. We spend some time defending the ship, and then we eventually get to move on. Welcome to your ship. Here you can craft and customize as you see fit. Maybe you'd like to decorate your ship both inside and outside. Exploring your ship further, you'll find the Door of Future Sacrifices. Warframe is a free-to-play game and they have to make their money somehow. One way they do this is having you pay for color customization. Now you could buy it, but also you can just go to accessibility and favorite the colors there. But getting back at the task at hand, let's see what...
Look at this mess. Those savages. Components have been removed.
From this point, we find out Ortis, the ship AI, has all of his parts missing, and we have to replace them. The Lotus suggests we go for the comms first, and that's what we do. So you're sent out to Earth for your first real mission, this one being a spy mission. You see, spy missions usually involve you infiltrating a location, then stealing the information with a target room. Spy missions always have separate routes you can take to get to the main target, but in this case, the correct option is up. After getting the comms module, we take our leave.
Excellent work.
And now finally being able to contact the outside world. Deno, you're not actually planning on using a bow, right? Would you be mad if I said yes? Alright, fine, we'll find something else. I got contacts with a few arms dealers. Okay then, let's see here. MIA, didn't build a house yet, comes back every 2 weeks. Ooh, slated for execution in a few hours. Okay, Tenno, get going. After making our way to the Grenier base, we travel to where the prisoners are being held. Once again, we can find a backdoor entrance and set the arms dealer free. All I need to do is protect this guy and make it toward extraction. This is quite the easy mission. The captain, gave me overshields. Alright then. From this point forward in the mission, Vor is actively taking advantage of your Warframe through that house arrest collar he placed on you. Eventually, you make it back to your orbiter. The arms dealer you saved is named Darvo, and in exchange for saving his life, he gives you a negator to remove the collar. The only problem is we need to craft it, and I don't recall replacing my crafting module, or even getting the materials to craft the negator in the first place. So we do a few missions and we get what we need. Finally, we can negate the effects of the Ascaris. It looks like the Ascaris came with a failsafe, and it's linked to the captain, so we're going to need to find his coordinates. Unfortunately, I don't really have a navigation segment, so I get back to work, retrieving and installing the nav segment. All that's left now is to end the unfortunately named life of Captain Vor. But before that, let's talk weapons and Warframes. In Warframe, your tools of destruction have several mod slots just bursting with potential. For weaponry, there's only 3 factors you should worry about. Damage is pretty self-explanatory. You know, the bigger the number, the bigger the hurt. Flat damage mods are great, but you'll also want to put multi-shot, which has the potential of doubling or tripling your damage. But enemies have armor and shields, which can diminish the damage, which is where status effects come in. There are several weapon effects that can make your live dissections more interesting. You have the physical types, like impact, puncture, and slash. Impact and puncture are both impractical. Impact allows you to keep hitting your enemies, and while you do so, you'll generate a finisher threshold, which will allow you to walk up to them and execute them. Puncture doesn't do a whole lot, but arguably its best use is to reduce enemy damage, which at that point is use a Warframe ability. If you want something significantly useful, use slash, which goes through enemy armor and forces their blood to touch any surface that isn't their insides. Then you have your basic elemental ones like cold, which will reduce overall movement by 90%. With toxin, your opponents no longer need to take their mode skip pills, as you can directly go for their health bar. Harness the power of nature itself with electricity. Use this to stun opponents and arc it between enemies who are close to one another. Then there's humanity's original homie, heat. Just don't touch it. This one cuts enemy defense in half and can ramp up damage infinitely. What if I told you you can combine elements? I won't go over them all, but there's only really 2 you should know about, at least for now. Viral and corrosion. Corrosion is the combination between electric and toxin, and it's the meanest and greenest of them all, allowing you to cut enemy defenses by a whopping 80%. And I sure do love using friendly chemicals on my enemies. Viral is a combination of cold and toxin. This effect forces my enemy's immune system to be on par with that of the Europeans during the 14th century. In essence, it increases the damage that you deal to an enemy's health by over 3 times. As for critical, which can be split in 2 different ways, critical damage and critical chance. Crit chance works much like status chance, but this time your damage increases per tier. You get mustard colors between 1 and 100%. 101 to 200% gives a healthy mix of yellow and orange, with 200 just being orange. You'll also dish out way more damage. And finally, 201 to 300% means you can get red crits, which are several times stronger than both yellow and orange. As for your Warframes at the start, they were all solid choices. Mag, for example, is what you call an expert at circulating blood outside the body. You see, if you use her first ability to pull targets near you, then use Magnetize and finalize it with Polarize, you can... Oh. My brother in Christ, she's a starter Warframe. Are you nuts? Mag can be very defensive. If you hold Magnetize, you'll capture projectiles and return them to sender. Her defenses aren't perfect. As status-based attacks, her melee attacks will still hurt. Mag is great, but what about Excalibur? His expertise lies less in the ballistic and more in the traditional. Melee weapons have something called melee combo. The more you strike your foes, the higher the combo. This usually comes with an overall boost in performance. Excalibur's first ability, Slash Dash, is great for this, as you blink from one target to the next. The second has him screaming, causing his enemies to be blinded for some reason. Here you can walk up to them and casually send them to a better place. His third ability is boring. Swords into his enemies and applying slash. But his fourth ability is the Exalted Blade, a powerful sword that can shoot waves of energy from it, which can also be modified as a fourth weapon. Or perhaps you chose. In Warframe, there are 3 things one must have for them to be considered an all-star. One is crowd control. Simply put, the ability to stop your opponents from doing anything, stun them or knock them around. The only question is for how long and how many. Survivability, it's in the name. The simple question is how good are you at staying alive? Can your Warframe heal themselves or others, diminish or ignore damage, protect themselves and allies? 3 is power. You know what I mean here. Can you dominate? And one secondary thing, usually some kind of buff or energy regeneration, though it's not completely necessary. And you know Volt, he's the kind of guy who likes to dabble in a little bit of everything. His first ability, Shock, is a decent stun, and you don't even need to directly hit to damage a target, allowing you to line up easy headshots, so it's actually good crowd control. His second ability, Speed, is good, like really good, like one of the best movement abilities in the game good. But it also increases weapon reload speed and melee attack speed, quite literally shifting you to maximum overdrive. If you don't want the effects of speed, you can do a backflip. Now, I don't know why you'd want to get rid of this outside a few instances. Then there's Volt's best ability, the Electric Shield, an ability so powerful that literally defies all reason. Not only does it protect you from a wide range of attacks, but it also is your best form of offense, as if you attack through it, you'll get a 50% electrical damage boost added to most weapons. But what if I told you that you can take this one step further, or rather 5 more, adding a grand total of 6 shields that you can place at once, taking that pitiful 50 to a whopping 300%, and for the cherry on top, attacking through the shield doubles critical damage. Now you could surround yourself for better protection, just know that the cost of that round-the-clock support is rather high, so make use of his ability to pick up a shield. Also, a few years ago they added the ability to knock enemies down if you sprint with the shield, which is just, it's really funny. His final ability, Discharge, will have him dish out a wave of electrical arcing damage that can chain back and forth between enemies and does a ton of damage, so really good crowd control. Volt's base fills each of these bullet points really well, and as time goes on, he'll only get better. So let's get back to the task.
This part of your journey is over, Tenno. I admire you for your struggle, but now...
Upon arriving, I probably do a little redecorating of my favorite kind of color. I call this one the Blood Cell Classic. Alright, Captain, let's get to the meat and potatoes. I got stuff crafting.
Oh, Tenno. This meat isn't FDA approved.
Chat, what does he mean by that?
Tenno, do you realize your Lotus has sent you to die?
Welcome to your first boss fight. It's not a tough one. This fight serves as a template going forward. War teaches a player that a 2013 game is going to have 2013 type bosses. You know, the damage and invulnerability stages, summoning enemies, and so on. You can't even one-shot this guy. Trust me, I came back as a literal bigger man, and yet he still didn't want to do the heart attack shuffle. Most bosses in Warframe follow something like this, and we'll cross those bridges when we get to them, and then burn them. The point I'm trying to make is don't expect some glorious battle for the ages from the system bosses. I love them as they are, and you should too. And don't worry, it doesn't mean there aren't some hidden gems out there. Just make sure to come prepared. But you and I knew how this was going to end, with Captain 4 on the wrong side of the grass. With the captain defeated, I no longer have to play on an alt account to record this footage. Therefore, I will no longer be role-playing as a new player. Warframe has 2-ish progression systems which feed into each other, but you only have to worry about the what do I do next one. Look toward the points that connect each planet. These are called junctions, which serve as gateways, i.e. roadblocks for new quests, new locations, and some rewards. Each time you get to one, you must complete a few prerequisites. For example, to go to Venus, one must finalize the captain, upgrade a mod, and talk to Kanzu on a little place called... Welcome to Cetus, an introduction of sorts to wonderful activities like open world bounties and syndicates. Here you can catch fish, mine ore, slaughter the local Grenier troops, and rescue animals, but you don't have a trank gun, do you? Oh, and don't come at night. Your true introduction begins with Kanzu, an honest man that wants nothing more to protect his people by any means necessary. Pretty weird that he knows your full name, as he humbly requests the extermination of a few pests. Kanzu is actually a pretty chill guy. He offers bounties, and upon completion, you will be rewarded with rare resources like Oxium, Morphix, and Gallium, and some must-have mods like Stretch, Streamlined, as well as the Augur, Vigilante, and Gladiator set. But we're here for a very different reason. We're here for the quest Saya's Vigil, my least favorite mission in all of Warframe. Simply put, this is the most fetch quest-like fetch quest mission I've played in a while. Saya's husband Anko went missing. Kanzu was with him during this time. Saya blames Kanzu. She finds something that belonged to Anko, called a glass coffer, and she wants us to open it. But the problem is we have to scan several glass shards, which you can find here, and here. Now it's nighttime, which means that we have to contend with the horrors of the dark and the very real horror of that. We find the last piece and are finally able to open the glass coffer. What do you think was in it? Infinite power, unlimited wealth, the respect and admiration of your peers? No, it's just the rose that Kanzu gave to Saya when they were younger. Bit of a little love triangle back then. Our actual reward is the Gara Warframe blueprint, who is quite the frame. With that finished, onto the junction, which uses a Warframe Spectre as a boss. We defeat the boss, blast the planet, and move on. We're rewarded for a few blueprints for weapons, companions, and a few helpful mods. We also get access to the quest once awake, but we have to traverse through the planet. Wait, hold on. I got a message. No one ever sends me messages. Let's read this out, shall we? Greetings from Fortuna. We've heard of your silly little antics on the plains, and according to the Ostron traders, you're an expert at forcefully administering SDS. Tenno, we're poor. Please help. XOXO. Solaris United. Sure, why not? We just have to go to the planet. This is Venus, and it's Corpus territory. Unlike its real-world counterpart, this place is a bit chilly. You might want to bring a coat. Hey, remember Cetus? Yeah, me neither. Welcome to Fortuna and its open-world counterpart, the Orbalis. Quite a very literal copy of what we just did. Down to the different NPCs who trade you things like mining tools and fishing spears. But, hey, at least we can get a train gun. Too bad. PETA is already knocking at my door. Alright, to be fair, Cetus was more of a template which they build off quite nicely here, with a new environment, story, and of course, a musical number.
The song of sons and daughters, find the heart of who we are.
After the message, we arrive at Fortuna, descending like a literal answer to all their prayers. This is where we meet the main antagonist of this arc, Nef Anyo. But why is he so hated? Well, he's a landlord, and like any landlord, he's charging exuberant prices for his tenants, so that the people can fund the project of getting the last remaining coolant tower working again. We begin by meeting Yuriko, the Kanzu of Fortuna, and she says, "Oi, Dada, you should probably head over to Thursby. He's not selling well." Don't worry, I won't be doing that accent again. Heading over to Thursby, and this little man starts rapping at me. He asks if I could buy something, but I don't support small businesses in such meaningless ways, so instead he asks us if we could head out to the Orvalis and steal some supply caches. After it's done, Thursby is a little too excited and accidentally lets this information slip over unencrypted channels, so Yuriko suggests we deal with the nearby surveillance drone that would have picked up on our ill-gotten gains. We knock it out so that Yuriko can hack it, so that I can hack the corpus into pieces. When we return, we get our thanks, and then are sent biz the business. Now, normally, he's a conservationist, but today we're going to be endangering the lives of the Corpus, and he wants me to steal a repo list. We sneak into the Corpus outpost, steal the info, and find out that both Thursby and Biz's group are in trouble. By the time we find them, they've been executed. Their bodies have transmitters that help us locate a few survivors. And to liberate them, we must first liberate the Corpus from their time on Venus. Soon after, Nef Anyo speaks to us directly.
Tenno, did you think I didn't notice your little heist earlier? Quite a stunt you pulled with that young... what was his name? Thursby.
And eventually, he sends his repo squads after Thursby, and unfortunately for him, he has to pay an arm and a leg.
Fellas? Thursby? Nah, you just missed him. No, I didn't do nothing. You don't understand. Stop!
We return to Yutiko. She tells us she quit
keep
being a
people
rebel
safe.
leader and focuses now on...
Keeping him happy.
She also explains that there's a massive force gathering on the doors of Fortuna, and if we want to leave, we can do so and just not return. But since We All Live Together is such a banger, I decided to see this one through. Yutiko hands us a K-bomb and sends us out to defend the place. Now once you're outside, you can place the K-bomb or shock them like I did. The forces continue to pile on you. All the while, this anonymous looking guy, Vox Solaris, obviously Yutiko in disguise, talks directly to Nef Anyo. She tells him to stop raising the rent, but he responds by dropping a massive metal spider on the field. This forces us into a retreat, and we talk to Yutiko one more time. She says she has a plan and that she left us a little gift outside, and wouldn't you know it, it's a goddamn hoverboard.
Hit the accelerators, Boggy.
Anyway, once you arrive at the coolant tower, the final mission truly begins. Here, you must defend the control terminal. During this, the Corpus is trying to end you. All the while, you play a little game of chicken, which goes a little something like this. If we continue to raise the coolant tower pressure to bring about a heat cascade, it will lead to our deaths, and Fortuna will look more like its real-life counterpart. More importantly, Nef realizes that if the coolant tower goes boom, he'll become a part of the working class, and he can't have that. And so, he gives in, and we complete the mission. Rent is lowered for another quarter, and our reward is the K-Drive. Welcome to Mercury, the final planet in the early game trifecta, and if this place seems familiar, it's because it's the final planet mentioned in the captain's obituary. This is the Infested, but you may know them as their appearances as the Flood from Halo, Dead Space Necromorphs, Warhammer 40k's Tyranids, or Prototype's Blacklight Virus. All alike, yet incredibly different. They make the air chunky and make you look funny. Divided into 3 parts, the Once Await quest begins with the gathering intel in the form of a spy mission, then an extermination mission. The last thing we do is protect the Lotus's DNA bomb in a defense mission. This quest serves as your introduction to the Dark Sector missions, which you face off against the Infestation in an endless mission type. There's pretty much one of these on every planet. Now with Mercury finished, it's time we moved on to Mars. And the quest upon completing this junction is the Arkwing quest. This quest begins with the Lotus telling you the Grineer Counselor, Vehek, is currently in the process of building a giant warship in space. Welcome to the Void, one of my favorite levels in all of Warframe. It has some of the best aspects of its map design, such as booby traps, vaults to explore, cosmological horror, and a cool color palette. From this point forward, you must travel to the Void portal. Here, you'll defend 2 terminals in order to enter it. And once you do, your new goal is to send the Lynx enemy to the respawn screen. Afterward, you pick up what it was protecting, and you head back to the Void. It's at this point you can find hidden caches around the map. I recommend finding them. Just look for these lockers, but white instead of green. And if you manage to find all 3, you'll get yourself a Forma, a very important tool in modding your weaponry out. You see, from this point, there are 3 missions, each having you get a separate individual part for the Arkwing, and after obtaining all 3, you fall into the final section of the mission. This mission is meant to be espionage. You're simply finding out more information on the threat. As Ford Beck and Vehek, 2 high-ranking chairmen begin arguing. Vehek starts firing. What are you screaming for? Tenno, they're firing rockets on your location. Well, alright then. I guess we could leave. You know, it's weird for a game that takes place in space to only just now let you fight there, and I'm all for it. This is your Odonta, the first of your Arcwings, and it comes with its own abilities, weapons, yeah, you get it. Interestingly enough, you can do the mission as intended, or you could just skip it. Don't worry, there's about 9 Arcwing missions, including the Jordis fight. Now that may sound bad at first, but one word: travel. You see, in open world missions, you can actually use the Arcwing, but how does one do this? Well, first, you need an Arcwing launcher segment to be crafted from your dojo. Then, you need to craft the separate Arcwing launcher. No dojo? No problem. How does one do this? Well, go into recruitment chat and say I'm new. Once someone was gullible enough to invite you in, all you need to do is accept and craft the clan key, as if this game needed any more craft times. Dojos work much like the Orbiter. Here you can decorate and trade, but far and away the most important thing is to be able to create labs. Labs in a dojo grant you access to a lot. You can get energy, health, shield, and ammo pads, special crafting material, and even dragon keys, which more on those later. Dojos give you access to a ton of weapons, like it's a massive armory. And trust me, there are some really good ones. Looking for secondaries? Try the Axe-Stiletto or the Cycron. If you like bows, think about getting the powerful Daikyu or the explosive lens. Maybe you want a sniper like the Lanka. Are you looking to roleplay as a samurai? Grab the Nikana. Or are you looking to beat people silly with the Shaku Nunchucks? Or just be a menace with the admittedly very cool Jat Kusar, which is described as a jet-powered sickle and razor chain weapon. Charged strikes ignite an explosive blast at range. Maybe you want something straight up strong like the Ignis Wraith. Give your dog a break. Why not grab Helios, a sentinel that can scan opponents so you can figure out their weaknesses? And don't worry if you're looking to take the fight upstairs, level up your Arcwing game by getting every Arcwing in the game and throwing literal hands with the Nux gauntlets. Finally, I can punch ships into oblivion. Whatever it is, your dojo most likely has it, as long as it has its research done. And if all of that didn't interest you somehow, you could always go to the Warframe Marketplace and buy yourself weapon blueprints. Each of these weapons are great, but by far, my favorite amongst them would be all throughout the system, there are 2 submachine guns. Unfortunately, I hate burst weapons. Enter the Baza, the only other SMG in the game. This is a silent gun with virtually no recoil, high accuracy, lightning fast reloads, a fire rate that rivals literal miniguns. Now you may be looking at its damage and think, wow, you're lying, except I'm not. Even the Prime version gets no boost in damage for some reason, but the truth is the weapon's other stats are significant. Low damage, but some strong critical and status stats, giving it some potential. Because of this, the Baza can easily extract the everything from my enemy's skulls. The dojo's the gift that keeps on giving, as you can get access to potentially 7 Warframes. All from the Tenno Lab. Maybe you'd like the Protective Neja or the Immortal Wukong. Feeling like you missed out? Why not grab Vault? And though I haven't used them all, there is one frame that, at least in my opinion, is on a completely different level from their fellow frames. Mercy is for the courts, and Zephyr's never been to court. It's just bodies. How'd he die like that? This is the Wind Warframe, and that might sound a bit biased here, given her name Immelman, my namesake. She's certainly some of the best Warframe has to offer, and to prove it, let's look at her abilities. Her passive gives her moon gravity, making her more agile, but it also adds a universal 150% critical chance boost across all weapons in the air. Her first ability, Tailwind, is less of a single ability and more of a family of abilities. Pressing it normally will have you dash in a direction, and if you got the duration, you'll approach Arcwing speed. And if you dash to your opponent, you can either stagger or chop them in half. Holding it will let you hover in the air, though you do lose small amounts of energy over time, but at least you can take full advantage of that passive. Looking downward and activating it will do a dive bomb, which can knock down enemies and at greater heights will dish out significantly more damage. And as an added bonus, if this ability is used in the air, it will only take half the energy cost. Pull enemies together or knock them away with a press or a hold. For every enemy hit, you increase the damage by 35%, and with a decent chance to apply slash, this gives air burst absurd damage potential. You can also use it for crate breaking. Just look at this vault with all that loot behind it. Normally, you have to run around and do other things to open this, but with Zephyr, you can simply pull the objects toward you, and for greater effect, use something like the fetch or vacuum mod on companions to increase item attraction. So, you know how Volt's shield pretty much blocks everything, but its greatest weakness is the fact that it can't protect you from all angles? Well, not Turbulence. This ability will defend you from all ranged attacks, defending from bullets, rockets, and grenades, but not completely defended from your usual offenders. Zero G's makes Zephyr more agile than your average frame, making dodging easy. But the true strength of Turbulence, besides it being an omnidirectional shield that invalidates 99% of the damage you take, is its modifiable range. That's right, with a max range of about 17 meters, you'll be protecting everything from your allies to objectives. Because of this, receiving damage is almost entirely optional, as the only enemies who can harm you are few and far between. Finally, her tornadoes, which once again can be used in two different ways. Pressing them normally will activate 3 roaming tornadoes, which all do normal status effects and pick up and ragdoll foes. You can aim your gun in a direction of the nearest tornado so that you can reposition and target groups of enemies. Hold the 3 tornadoes, they'll stay in place, so use air burst to pull enemies toward them. If you shoot the tornadoes, the damage will be redistributed to all enemies affected. That means that you can commit several crimes simultaneously without having to waste the correct amount of ammo to do it. But it gets better. These tornadoes also double critical damage, so that means Zephyr can turn any weapon into an AoE while increasing the overall critical factor. Tornadoes also absorb status effects, and you've been giving 3 for 3 different effects. By all accounts, Zephyr is busted. She has one of the best passives in the game, one of the best defensive abilities in the game, and her abilities are constantly lying to you, dishing out more damage than they tell you. Pick Zephyr up if she interests you. As for that material cost, you can go to Fortuna or Cetus to get some bounties done. Now, I'm not telling you all this so you throw away Volt, or any Warframe for that matter. No, as they all get better with time, so keep those first picks handy, because you'll never know. I, however, will not cease my win-related war crimes. S tier. Now that you have your brand spanking new Warframes, weapons, gear, and Arcwing, let's get back on track. Here we are on Mars, which is a desert, sometimes home to the Desert Snake. That's about it. Mars is the only planet connected to 4 others: Earth, Phobos, Deimos, and Ceres, some of which requires our attention via the junctions, but let me knock one out the way. Deimos. I know I don't have to remind you about Fortuna or Cetus. Deimos has something similar in the form of the Necrolist and the Cambion Drift, of which its daylight cycle comes in the form of 2 gigantic worms who blast each other's heads off with Kamehamehas only to regenerate their heads over the course of an hour, and then blast the other worm's head off. The point I'm trying to make is that it's a goddamn shame I can't witness this occasion take place in Captura mode, so I had to wait almost 2 hours for this bit. Anyway, I won't be talking about the Deimos mission, at least not during this video, because I can't replay it. But trust me when I say, the bounties give away some absolute loot. As for the rest of the planet, it's an infested derelict hell. Here you can do some vault runs for special corrupted mods. These are some of the best in the game, but with some serious downsides. Take Narrow-Minded for example. This mod gives you 99% duration, but you lose 66% range. To fix that, you might want to use Overextended, giving you 90% range but losing 60% strength, so you gotta min-max. You'll need dragon keys, so craft them and equip them. Keep in mind that these keys come with their own load-bearing issues, like reduced speed, shield, health, and damage. And you'll never know which key you'll need to open a door, so bring all 4 if you're up for it, or gather a 4-man squad to split the diff. From the Phobos Junction, you get the quest Stolen Dreams. The quest begins with you learning about the search for the arcane codices. Eventually, the last one is uncovered, but is currently in the hands of the treasure hunter Maru. These Oricon codices, when all collected, is believed to hold great power. So we're trying to grab Maru before the Grineer does. The Lotus tells us to head to Mars, so that we can convince Maru to join our side. Unfortunately for her, I persuade her by gunning her down. Once she's captured,
It stings!
she assists us in getting the remaining arcane codices, which look like a series of spy missions. Between these, Ortis finds out that the codices must be used in some sort of machine. Maru knows where it is, and so we begin our final mission, this time to a derelict. And once there, I grab the corrupted mod, and soon after...
Codices, upload them, and say hello to treasure.
is the womb of the sky. All is silent.